To adults, a decade might not seem like a long time. It might feel like it passes in an instant. However, my daughter, who was once a primary school student, is now old enough to be a working adult. My husband, Paul, who left us on his own will, has been staying at his parents' house for a decade now, failing to fulfill his duties as a father. My mother-in-law, who allowed this, is the same. Even if I were proposed a house where all our generations could live together, what they probably would want from me is nothing but to be their housekeeper. It's too late now. Even if they start acting friendly upon sensing money. I have spent a decade raising my child alone. Unlike you, I haven't wasted my time. My name is Judy, 53 years old, a full-time housewife with a part-time job. My only daughter, Hannah, who commutes to university from home, recently received a job offer and will start working next year. I am worried about her as she is still oblivious about the world, but I am happy that she has grown up well. Raising a child felt like it went by in a flash, but I still have her student loan to repay. For over 20 years, I have prioritized my daughter, but I wonder what my life will be like from now on. It might be nice to travel, enjoy hobbies, or join the gym I've always wanted to go to. However, right about this time, both of my parents passed away. Their death was sudden, caused by a rear-end collision, killing them both on the spot. It was so sudden that I had no time to mourn, busy with funeral preparations and inheritance matters. After the meeting with the tax accountant was over and things seemed to have calmed down, I finally burst into tears and suddenly realized I should let my husband know. I picked up my phone and called him. There was no response. Of course, he wouldn't answer. I knew that. I had tried several times before the funeral, but he did not respond. I sent messages, but there was no reply. After several attempts, I got busy and forgot about him. More than a week had passed. I don't consider myself heartless for not thinking about my husband at such a time. In fact, it's been years since my husband stopped coming home. He's not missing. He's living at his parents' house. Since he left the house of his own accord, he has kept his distance from me. At times it can be troublesome and annoying if you can't get in contact. If there is an emergency, I can only leave a message with his parents' home phone. I was puzzled when my husband first left. I don't really know why he left since he refused to talk to me about it. But I could care less about the reason once I was caught up with childcare and a full-time job. I felt it was pointless to try to understand someone who would go to such lengths to abandon his family. From the beginning of our marriage, he had prioritized his own family more than us. We argued about this many times. Even if I emphasized repeatedly that we had our own family to protect, he would break his promises whenever his mother would ask him for a favor. It didn't matter if we had prepared to go out or booked a trip. Still, I felt he tried to contribute to the family when our daughter was young. But when our daughter reached teenage years and her attitude towards her father became colder, his mother suddenly hurt her back. That year, there was a lot of snow, and my daughter and I had caught colds. He said he would help out at his parents' house for a while, since it was a difficult time for his mother, but he never came back. How a husband who couldn't handle household chores at all was useful? I don't know, but my mother-in-law kept him there, saying it was okay for him to stay as long as he liked, pampering him. The overprotective and overly interfering mother-in-law was spoiling her grown-up son. As a result, my husband couldn't escape the luxury of living at his parents' home. To my mother-in-law, I was the bad daughter-in-law who stole her precious son. Their behavior truly was unreasonable and unbearable. Since I had no choice, I contacted my husband's parents' house. The one who picked up the phone, however, was my mother-in-law. "Hello, Mother, it's Judy. Is Paul there? I can't get in touch with him. What's wrong? I need to speak to him. Can you put him on the line, please? What do you need to talk to him about? I'll let him know." This was the usual exchange. Because of this, I haven't had a direct conversation with my husband in years. Actually, my parents have passed away. What? Considering the current situation, we held the funeral with only close family and friends. Why didn't you tell me such an important thing immediately? I tried several times. I can't believe this. How could you lack such common sense? I had no idea what she was talking about. What exactly does she mean by common sense? Outrageous. Why would you wait to tell me until after the funeral is over? That's why you're. By the way, what will you do with your parents' house? We're gathering as a family this weekend to sort things out. Then, my mother-in-law paused for a moment and said, "The big house." Yes, it might take some time since the house is huge. I see. My mother-in-law laughed ominously. Do you have something to say? No, not at all. It's nothing. Is that so? Then I'll excuse myself. After hanging up, my daughter Hannah looked at me with concern. Are you okay? You look upset. There's no need to force yourself to contact grandma or dad. You're too diligent, Mom, my daughter said with worry. It's not that simple. You have way too much sense of obligation, Mom. Hearing my daughter's concern, I responded, I just don't want to be thought of as unreasonable. Inside, I was raging with anger. I even thought it might be better to just cut ties with them. However, to my daughter, he still is her one and only father. It wasn't that easy to sever ties with them. The weekend arrived, and me and my daughter went to my family home. My siblings took care of the cleanup, and everyone played their roles, progressing steadily. Clearing out a house that no one has lived in was harder than I had imagined. We decided to leave the larger furniture and appliances to a professional service. All of a sudden, I received a call from my mother-in-law. It was rare for her to contact me. Judy, how's the cleanup going? Is everything all right? My mother-in-law asked cheerfully. It's as if she had some good news. She continued, actually, I'm busy with something urgent right now and won't be able to make it today. Sorry for that. I didn't expect her to come over to help anyways. We've barely seen each other since my husband left, so why would she suddenly say such a thing? I don't think she knows the location of my family home either. It's okay. Please don't worry about it. Don't be shy. We're family, so it's natural to help each other out. Is this some strange twist of fate? Normally self-centered, my mother-in-law seemed to show some sort of understanding for the situation. I decided to genuinely accept her feelings. By the way, when you said you're tidying up the house, you mean sorting through belongings, right? Yes, there are so many things, and it's quite a hassle, right? It must be difficult to be surrounded by so many things. Yes, especially with dresses and artworks. It's really challenging when there are items that we don't know what to do with them. I see. That sounds wonderful. I started to feel cold as I caught a glimpse of my mother-in-law's true intentions. I was a fool to think she was genuinely concerned. How could she possibly have been concerned with not being able to help? Is that all you wanted to discuss? Actually, I was genuinely curious as to how much your parents left you behind. What? Well, it's my turn next, after all. I just wanted to know, merely for reference. That varies from one family to another. Well, yes, but it wouldn't hurt to tell me a little, would it? I couldn't contain my irritation. During the 10 years we haven't met, did my mother-in-law grow old and become more audacious and greedy? My parents had instructed in their will that the inheritance be divided equally among us siblings. Needless to say, my mother-in-law has no right to interfere. Let's make this clear. The inheritance will be divided into 3, so it has nothing to do with you, Mother. What? I'm busy right now, so I'll excuse myself. With that, I ended the call. Her attitude was extremely rude. My parents had passed away, and she didn't offer condolences, only inquired about the inheritance. Then, my daughter, who had been tidying up another room, came over. Was that grandma on the phone? Yes, it was. What happened? Nothing for you to worry about. I replied with a wry smile, and my daughter looked slightly displeased. I'm an adult now, you know. Stop treating me like a child. I hadn't meant it that way, but her assertive response surprised me a bit. Indeed, she is now of an age to be treated as a full-fledged adult. I felt a mix of happiness and an indescribable sense of loneliness. Mom, I know what's going on. What do you mean? If my guess is right, I want you to make one promise. A promise? What kind? That's when I made a special promise with my daughter. A week passed, the house cleanup was nearly finished, and I was thinking of returning to work when the doorbell rang. Thinking it was the delivery guy, I opened the door to an annoying long time no see. I should have checked first. If I had known, I wouldn't have opened the door. There stood my mother-in-law and... Who was that next to her? A loose, unshapely figure with thin hair fluttering in the breeze. Was this middle-aged man, wearing a stretched-out sweatshirt looking filthy, really my spouse, Paul? I stared in disbelief at first and said, "You've got the wrong address." As I was about to close the door, my mother-in-law said, "Don't joke around, Judy." Breaking the silence and visiting without any prior announcement. What did these two want? And most of all, why was my mother-in-law in such high spirits? Despite never allowing any space between her and her beloved son, my mother-in-law breezed past me and entered the room with confidence. "Wait, Mother." My husband followed her in, entering my property without asking. Maybe he didn't need permission since it was his home too. But the 10-year gap had practically made him a stranger to me. And I certainly didn't want to welcome this unsightly man into my home. "I have a surprise for you, Judy." "I thought you'd be pleased," my mother-in-law cheerily said. My husband sat down next to my mother-in-law. "Oh, I'd like some coffee, please." "Paul, how about you?" "I'll have tea." "Judy, please bring us some." I couldn't stand not just my mother-in-law's behavior, but my husband's as well. How can a man who left home without a word, spent 10 years at his parents' house, sending only a small amount for living expenses, and never contacting us, now demand tea as if nothing happened? Why should I serve you tea? Even if I were to oblige, there are things that should be said first. Although I was screaming in my mind, I maintained my composure and asked, "What's the occasion? What's wrong, Judy? Please make it quick." "What? This is how you treat us after we've come all this way? If you have no business here, please leave." What a rude daughter-in-law. I see no reason why I should show manners to someone who appears out of nowhere after 10 years, following their own whims. I decided to remain calm. At that moment, my daughter came down from the second floor. "Hannah, it's been so long." "Grandma." My daughter's eyes widened in surprise. Even my husband seemed taken aback by her reaction. "Hannah, you've grown so much." Who are you?" It seemed she didn't recognize the man next to her grandmother as her father. Understandably so, since the last time they saw each other was when she was in elementary school. "What do you mean?" "It's me, Dad." "Wait, Dad?" "Oh, Hannah, I can understand. It's hard to accept that this slightly overweight, balding middle-aged man is your father. To you, he's nothing but a stranger." "Hannah, sit down here," her father instructed, pointing to the seat next to him. My daughter stepped back, visibly uncomfortable. "No, absolutely not." "Why not?" "I have a unique condition that makes me ill if I don't stand. Don't worry about it." I felt sorry for my daughter. To suddenly have such a health issue. "Take a look at this," my mother-in-law suggested. She pulled out architectural plans from an envelope she brought, featuring the logo of a renowned architectural firm. The floor plan showed enough rooms for 4 families to live comfortably, a rooftop garden plan, and sketches of a palace-like exterior. A catalog for luxury cars was subtly included as well. "How do you like it?" "What is this?" "We planned our ideal home. Isn't it wonderful?" My mother-in-law seeked agreement, but I was wondering how I should respond. "The kitchen and utilities can be chosen as you like, Judy." "What do you mean?" "No need to be shy. It's your right to decide since you'll be the one using it." "Using it? What do you mean?" "I recently realized we should live together as a family, and since we just happened to get some money on our hands." "What timing, don't you agree?" "That is." "I don't know the specifics, but how does that involve me?" "We're family, aren't we?" "I believe family possessions should be shared." I couldn't grasp the details, but it was clear to me that my mother-in-law was going out of control. Desperate to turn the situation around, I turned to my husband. "What do you think?" However, in response to my question, they just exchanged looks and nodded silently. Then, my mother-in-law whispered something to my husband so I couldn't hear. It's as if a secret meeting was taking place. My husband finally spoke up. "Seems like it's time for me to return home." Confused, I let out an unintelligible noise. "What?" "With the $3 million we inherited, I'm thinking of building a 2-family house to live there with my parents." My mother-in-law nodded smugly. "Isn't that a great plan?" Hearing this, my daughter couldn't hold back and exclaimed, "Did you hear that?" "Mom, it's just like I said." I couldn't help but laugh. "Haha, I can't believe it really turned out just as you said." "Ahaha, Hannah, you're amazing." We shared a laugh, and the atmosphere lightened. Seeing this, my mother-in-law and husband also seemed pleased. "I'm glad you two agree." "True. The construction date is already set, and all that's left is to pay the down payment." My daughter confronted the two, who seemed to be misunderstanding. "You're completely wrong." "Grandma, Dad, don't you think you're being a bit too oblivious?" "Huh? Even if you say you want to live together, I absolutely refuse to take care of the two of you who have troubled Mom for years." Surprised, my mother-in-law exclaimed, "What? Mom, I won the bet, so keep your promise." My daughter said energetically. All right, I responded. Hearing our conversation, my mother-in-law asked, "What do you mean? What promise?" "Grandma, it seems like you can't tell the difference between what belongs to others and what belongs to you. So we bet on whether or not Grandma was after the inheritance." "Huh? What does that mean?" "If you could tell the difference, you would long have told Dad to go back. You would have told him to go back to his own home. But you yourself said that families should be together. I wonder whether you know what place was the right place to live, yours or ours?" It was my husband that raised his voice next. "Truth is, I left this house because of you two." My daughter and I looked at each other. We couldn't understand what he was saying. "I would have forgiven you immediately if you had just apologized. I was waiting for just one word from you both." "Wait, you lost me." "What do you mean?" "You told me to leave, Judy." I simply couldn't recall. "There's no way." I have no memory of telling my husband to leave. Have you really forgotten? That cold, snowy night. When I came home tired from work, you told me to leave the house. That night when it was snowing? Trying to remember, a faint memory came back. That day, despite Hannah and me being bedridden with a cold, you came home without buying anything and asked, "What's for dinner?" So, I just asked you to dine out, to hold on to such a trivial thing for years. It felt like all the strength drained out of me. How stupid. Was that really what happened? Yes, that's why I'm confused. Even so, why did you leave it like that? It's your fault. I tried to contact you many times. You and your mother as well. My mother-in-law smirked with a hint of guilt for not relaying the messages. Apologize and I'll forgive everything. Wait, I should apologize. Let's forget about the past and start anew. Let's reconcile as a family. Hearing this, my daughter couldn't contain her laughter. Dad, didn't you know? Know what? Mom has been preparing for divorce for 5 years. What? The promise with my daughter was to get divorced. If my mother-in-law was acting out of greed for the inheritance, it was a sign of endless troubles ahead, prompting me to make my own decision, including her wish for me to carve out my own future. Having her support, I truly felt relieved. It was like shedding a heavy burden off my shoulders that I've been carrying for years. Don't joke around. Do you think you can just submit a divorce application unilaterally? Calmly, I retorted to my husband's anger. Long-term no contact and separation are sufficient grounds for divorce. What does that mean? Didn't you know? I thought I was fulfilling my duties as a father by sending money. In reality, the amount was way too insignificant. Do you think children can be raised on money alone? How can you say you've fulfilled your role as a father after neglecting your family for 10 years? A mother is supposed to take care of the kids. There was no point in talking to such a person. No need to try and understand each other. Yes, I raised her by myself. And indeed, we didn't need you. Work, school events, pickups, preparing lunchboxes. Looking back, it was indeed challenging. Even when I was sick, the husband I should have been able to rely on was absent. Your presence was and will be unnecessary. What? Let's send this. I'll submit the divorce papers. Wait, are you serious? What are you planning to do from now on? Judy, please help. What should me and Paul do when we get older? My mother-in-law pleaded, trembling with fear. You're essentially saying Hannah and I should be your helpers or caregiving staff. No, that's not what I don't know what to tell you. Unless I have something I'm indebted to you. What about the $3 million inheritance? Let's use it more effectively. Where did these $3 million come from? If divided among siblings, it implies there was a $9 million inheritance. There couldn't possibly be such a large sum. Indeed, my family home looked impressive, but it was old and of no special value. And most of the wealth was spent by my financially careless parents. $3 million, $3 million. Could it be a misunderstanding of dividing into 3? What? There wasn't such a large sum of inheritance in the first place. What? Even if there were, I would never build a house for us to live together. I declare this firmly in front of my bewildered mother-in-law and tearful husband. Judy, are you really going to leave me behind? Despite the middle-aged man's tears pleading for forgiveness, my decision remained unchanged. Continue living at your beloved parents' home as you wish. Goodbye. 3 months had passed since then. The ceaseless demands for reconciliation from my ex-spouse were borderline stalking. The lengthy messages containing grievances sent over 20 times a day obviously went unread. If he persisted in his intrusive behavior, I hinted I would be taking legal action. I saved the threatening emails as evidence for potential future use, and upon learning this, he backed down. The divorce papers were finally filled out and processed without issue. Thinking about it, my ex-husband and mother-in-law lacked imagination. They failed to empathize with others and only thought about their own future, succumbing to immediate pleasures and selfish living, which inevitably lead to regret. The idea that someone else should take care of them was naive. It's a pitiful sight, considering even my daughter is striving to become independent. Speaking of which, after getting a job, my daughter plans to move out and live alone. It was my suggestion. Though I'll be lonely, it will be a great experience for her. Understanding the value of money, time, and family requires actual experience. Since she'll live nearby, it's not like she'll be left to struggle on her own. I'm always ready to support her and wish for her to grow into a responsible adult. As for myself, I've been offered a full-time position at the company where I was working part-time. After the task of raising a child somehow came to an end, they strongly recommended it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to become a full-time employee following the divorce. I'm currently diligently studying to get a certificate. I'm excited about this new journey. When I shared the news with my daughter, she said, "Mom, you're like a new employee, just like me," and we laughed together. Time flows equally for everyone, but how we spend those 10 years varies. There will be enjoyable times and moments when things don't go as planned. Maybe after another 10 years, some conclusions will be reached. I plan to live freely like my daughter wished for me. I hope you do the same.